Before the world reaches for you, you must already be standing. Most men allow the day to strike first. Noise, obligation, desire, and distraction rush in, and the mind wakes already surrounded. In that state, you are not leading, you are responding. Weakness grows fastest when reaction becomes a habit. That is why the first moments matter more than any other. When the eyes open, there is a brief silence before thought settles. In that space, command is decided. Comfort will immediately offer terms, it will suggest delay, softness, negotiation. It speaks politely as if it is harmless. But understand this clearly, the voice of comfort is the voice of surrender disguised as reason. If you listen to it at the start, it will follow you all day. I do not rise early to impress discipline upon others. I rise to remind myself who commands this body. The body is loyal, but it is also lazy. It seeks warmth, ease, familiarity. If you allow it to lead even once, it will expect leadership again. Authority, once given away, is difficult to reclaim. That is why it must never be surrendered in the first place. The moment you choose to rise despite resistance, something shifts internally. You do not feel powerful immediately. You feel resistance, stiffness, irritation. That is good. Resistance confirms that discipline is being exercised. Strength does not announce itself with comfort, it announces itself with friction. Many believe discipline should feel motivating. This belief weakens them. True discipline often feels neutral or even unpleasant. It is not meant to entertain you, it is meant to align you. Alignment is quiet. It does not excite, it stabilizes. When you rise before the world stirs, you gain more than time, you gain clarity. There are no demands yet, no expectations pressing in. This is when the mind is cleanest. Thoughts form without urgency. Decisions are made without pressure. You begin the day from intention instead of reaction. This difference cannot be overstated. Men who wake late often chase the day. They hurry, they multitask, they rush without direction. They feel busy but remain unfocused. Effort spreads thin, energy leaks through distraction. They confuse motion for progress. This is not strength, it is exhaustion dressed as ambition. When you claim the first hours, you decide the tempo. You are no longer hurried, you move deliberately. You select what matters and discard what does not. Calm becomes your default not because life is calm but because you are prepared before chaos arrives. The early hours also remove illusion. Without distraction, you cannot lie to yourself easily. You feel the weight of fatigue. You hear the mind complain. You notice the urge to quit small tasks early. These are not enemies, they are signals. Each signal reveals where weakness hides. The disciplined do not suppress these signals. They observe them and continue anyway. Continuing despite internal resistance trains obedience to principle. You act because you decided to act, not because you feel like it. This is the foundation of all mastery. Skill without obedience collapses under pressure. Talent without discipline betrays itself when conditions worsen. There is a humility learned in rising early. You accept that the world does not owe you comfort. You accept that readiness is your responsibility alone. This acceptance removes resentment. There is no anger at the day when you meet it prepared. There is only engagement. Over time, the mind learns to trust your decisions. When you repeatedly do what you say you will do, even when it is uncomfortable, internal conflict decreases. The arguing voice grows quieter. Action becomes simpler. You no longer need to convince yourself, you move. This trust is rare. Most men break promises to themselves daily. They excuse it as flexibility or self-care. In truth, it erodes self-respect. Each broken promise weakens authority. Each kept promise restores it. The morning is where this authority is either reinforced or destroyed. Early discipline also sharpens perception. You become more aware of how easily time slips away. You stop wasting it carelessly. You stop treating hours as endless. When you earn your mornings, you respect your days. Some will argue that rest is necessary, that strictness leads to burnout. They misunderstand the nature of control. Discipline does not mean cruelty, it means choice. You choose when to rest. You do not rest because you are weak, you rest because it is strategic. There is a difference. Comfort taken without effort dulls the spirit. Comfort taken after discipline restores it. Only one of these builds strength. The greatest benefit of claiming the mind early is this: you become difficult to disturb. When stress arrives later, it feels familiar. You have already faced resistance quietly without witnesses. You have already proven to yourself that discomfort does not control you. External pressure loses its power when internal order is strong. Men often search for confidence in success. This is unreliable. Success fluctuates. True confidence is built in private in moments no one sees, rising early, choosing discipline, facing resistance. These moments stack silently. Over time, they form an unshakable base. The first victory of the day is small, but it is decisive. Win it consistently, and weakness has no place to grow. Command the beginning, and the rest will follow. Once the mind has been claimed, it must be hardened. A soft mind, even when disciplined, will fracture under real pressure. This is why pain must be chosen before comfort becomes a habit, not because suffering is noble, but because weakness grows wherever comfort is left unchallenged. If you do not confront it deliberately, it will surround you quietly and rule you without resistance. Most men believe pain is something to avoid until it arrives on its own. They treat discomfort like a punishment, an interruption to life. This belief keeps them fragile. Pain is not the enemy. Unfamiliar pain is. When difficulty is rare, it feels overwhelming. When difficulty is daily, it becomes manageable. Familiarity removes fear. Choosing pain does not mean destroying the body or seeking misery. It means stepping into resistance intentionally. It means placing yourself where effort is required, where quitting would feel easy, and continuing anyway. This is how weakness is exposed. Weakness does not survive inspection, it survives avoidance. Comfort is deceptive because it feels harmless in small amounts. One delay, one excuse, one easy option chosen over a harder one, each seems insignificant. Together they create a pattern. Patterns shape character. A character shaped by comfort becomes dependent, reactive, and easily shaken. When you choose pain early and often, the body complains, but the mind grows quiet. Complaints are loud only when they are new. Repeated exposure dulls their voice. Over time, discomfort loses its ability to command attention. You feel it, acknowledge it, and continue. This is strength in its most useful form. There is a difference between enduring pain and using it. Endurance alone hardens but does not refine. Using pain means observing how you react to it. Do you tense unnecessarily? Do you rush to escape? Do you become angry or impatient? Pain reveals these habits instantly. Each revelation is an opportunity to correct posture, breath, and thought. Daily hardship also teaches economy of movement. Under resistance, waste becomes obvious. Excess motion drains energy. Excess thought clouds judgment. Pain simplifies, it forces you to act cleanly or fail quickly. This carries into all areas of life. Your actions become efficient, your words become deliberate, your decisions become precise. Many fear that choosing pain will make them harsh or bitter. This only happens when pain is taken without understanding. When pain is chosen with awareness, it produces calm. You stop dramatizing difficulty. You stop attaching meaning to discomfort. It is simply part of the process, nothing more. Comfort encourages entitlement. Pain encourages gratitude. When effort is constant, ease is appreciated rather than expected. This shift removes resentment. You no longer feel cheated when life is demanding. Demand has become normal. Voluntary hardship also trains patience. Pain cannot be rushed through. It demands presence. You must remain where you are, doing what is required without distraction. This patience strengthens focus. A focused mind wastes less energy resisting reality. There is also a moral strength that forms. When you know you can endure discomfort without collapse, integrity becomes easier. You are less tempted to lie, shortcut, or betray principle for convenience. Weakness often leads to compromise. Strength allows you to hold position. The body learns as well. It adapts quickly to repeated strain. But the real adaptation happens in the nervous system. Panic decreases, stress responses soften, you remain functional under pressure. This is not because pressure disappears, but because your relationship to it has changed. Men who avoid pain often seek control through dominance, noise, or intimidation. They are easily threatened because they are unfamiliar with resistance. Those who choose pain daily do not need to prove strength, they know it intimately. Their presence is steady, not aggressive. Hardship also strips away fantasy. You stop imagining who you could be and begin dealing with who you are. Effort replaces dreaming. Action replaces planning. Reality replaces illusion. This grounding is essential. Illusions shatter under pressure. Reality holds. Choosing pain creates momentum. Each time you step into discomfort and survive, hesitation weakens. The gap between decision and action shortens. You stop debating with yourself, you move. This momentum becomes visible in moments of crisis. While others freeze or overreact, you adjust, you breathe, you assess, you act, not because you are fearless but because fear is familiar. Familiarity removes paralysis. There is a discipline in knowing when to stop as well. Pain is a tool, not an obsession. Excess breaks what should be strengthened. Wisdom guides intensity. The goal is resilience, not destruction. When hardship is chosen daily, weakness has nowhere to hide. It is dragged into the open and addressed repeatedly until it fades. Comfort no longer controls decision. Desire no longer dictates action. Mood loses authority. The man who chooses pain before comfort becomes difficult to manipulate. He cannot be bribed with ease or threatened with discomfort. He has already faced both on his own terms. Strength built this way is quiet, durable, and unbreakable. Choose resistance while you are calm, and nothing will bend you when the world turns hard. After discipline has been established and hardship has been chosen, there remains a far more dangerous opponent, one that cannot be defeated with effort alone. This opponent lives within, unseen by others, protected by habit and comfort. It is self-deception. Many men train their bodies and control their routines, yet still remain weak because they refuse to look at themselves without mercy. Strength built on illusion will always collapse. Most men do not lack ability, they lack honesty. They tell themselves stories to remain comfortable. They call fear caution, laziness rest, ego confidence, and avoidance strategy. These stories feel convincing because they protect the image they wish to believe, but the mind that lies to itself cannot grow sharp. It can only grow clever at escaping responsibility. To observe oneself without mercy does not mean to hate yourself. Hatred clouds judgment. It distorts. Ruthless observation is calm, cold, and precise. You do not accuse, you do not excuse, you simply see. Seeing clearly is the beginning of control. Silence is required for this. Noise protects weakness. Distraction buries flaws under stimulation. When the world is loud, the inner voice cannot be heard clearly. That is why solitude feels threatening to many. In quiet moments, excuses fall apart, patterns become visible. The disciplined do not flee this discomfort, they sit with it. When you observe yourself honestly, you will notice repetition, where you hesitate, where you rush, where you avoid effort, where emotion overtakes reason. These repetitions reveal your true habits, not the ones you claim to have. Character is not what you intend, it is what you repeat under pressure. The mind resists this practice fiercely. It will defend itself with logic and emotion. It will say, "This is unnecessary," or "You are being too harsh," or "Others are worse." These defenses are signals. They mark exactly where observation must continue. Resistance always points toward weakness. Many confuse self-observation with self-criticism. Criticism attacks without direction and leaves you smaller. Observation gathers information and leaves you stronger. One is emotional, the other is strategic. The goal is not guilt, the goal is accuracy. Accuracy brings freedom. When you know exactly where you are weak, you stop being surprised by failure. You stop asking why the same problems return. You stop blaming circumstances. Instead, you adjust deliberately. Weakness loses its power when it is exposed repeatedly. Most men fear this exposure because they fear losing their identity. They have invested too much in who they think they are, but identity built on illusion is fragile. It requires constant defense. Once illusion is removed, effort finally has direction. Improvement becomes real instead of imagined. This practice also removes the need for validation. When you see yourself clearly, praise becomes unnecessary and criticism becomes useful. You are no longer defined by opinion. You are defined by evidence. Evidence does not lie. Ruthless observation also teaches restraint. You learn not to act on every thought. Not every impulse deserves obedience. You begin to see thoughts as whether passing, changing, unreliable. Action becomes deliberate rather than reactive. At first, you will notice flaws after they occur. You will reflect and recognize where discipline failed. This is progress. With time, you will notice flaws as they occur. You will feel the urge to quit, to react, to justify, and you will pause. Eventually, you will notice flaws before they occur. This is mastery beginning. In that moment between impulse and action, choice is born. Most men never experience this moment. They live driven by habit and emotion. The disciplined live guided by awareness. Awareness turns reaction into decision. There is also humility in this practice. You are reminded daily that strength is not permanent, it must be renewed. Ego dies where observation lives, complacency cannot survive under inspection. Failure will be revealed often. This is not a problem. Failure is instruction. Shame is useless. Pride is dangerous. Both distract from correction. You record, adjust, and continue. Emotion is minimized. Progress is maximized. Many seek clarity through books, teachers, and systems. These can guide, but they cannot replace honest observation. No method works if the mind refuses to see itself. Truth must be faced directly without ornament. When you observe yourself honestly, discipline strengthens naturally. You stop negotiating with weakness. You stop pretending tomorrow will be different without action today. Time stops being an excuse. A man who cannot lie to himself becomes difficult to deceive. A man who knows his own weakness cannot be controlled by it. A man who sees clearly stands firmly, even when alone. Nothing outside you can threat what you no longer hide from within. See yourself without illusion, and weakness will have nowhere left to live. After illusion has been stripped away and weakness exposed, there remains another threat that quietly destroys discipline if left unchecked. This threat is emotion when it is allowed to command action. Emotion is natural, it is not an enemy, but when it leads, clarity disappears. A man ruled by emotion is predictable, manipulable, and unstable. Strength requires something colder, something steadier. Most men believe they act logically, but they act emotionally and explain it afterward with logic. Anger disguises itself as righteousness. Desire disguises itself as ambition. Fear disguises itself as wisdom. When emotion is not recognized, it governs silently. This is why detachment is necessary, not to become empty but to become accurate. Detachment does not mean indifference, it means distance. You feel emotion but you do not kneel before it. You acknowledge it the way you acknowledge weather. Rain does not decide your direction. Heat does not dictate your destination. Emotion should be treated the same way. When attachment is strong, reaction is immediate. Insult demands response. Desire demands satisfaction. Discomfort demands escape. This urgency is weakness. It shortens perspective. It narrows vision. It hands control to whatever stimulus appears next. The disciplined mind creates space. In that space, emotion loses its urgency. Anger can exist without action. Fear can appear without retreat. Desire can rise without obedience. This space is not hesitation, it is command. Attachment often comes from identity. When you tie your sense of self to outcomes, opinions, or possessions, emotion becomes violent when these are threatened. Pride flares, anxiety spikes, decisions become defensive. Detachment removes this fragility. You act from principle rather than protection. Most conflicts escalate because emotion is mistaken for truth. A feeling appears and it is trusted immediately, but feelings are temporary and often inaccurate. Acting on them gives them authority they do not deserve. The disciplined wait, they observe, they let the emotion pass before deciding. Often the correct action reveals itself only after emotion has faded. This ability is trained under pressure. It is easy to be detached when nothing is at stake. True discipline appears when something matters deeply and you still choose clarity over impulse. This requires repetition. Each time you resist reacting, restraint strengthens. Emotion also distorts memory. When you are attached, you remember selectively. You justify past actions, you exaggerate slights, you minimize errors. Detachment restores accuracy. You see events as they were, not as they felt. This accuracy sharpens judgment. Many fear that detachment will make them cold or unmotivated. The opposite is true. Emotion-driven motivation burns quickly and fades. Principle-driven action endures. When you act from values rather than feeling, consistency replaces intensity. Consistency is more powerful. Detachment also removes the need to win every moment. When ego is attached, every disagreement becomes a battle. Every challenge feels personal. Energy is wasted defending image. When detached, you choose battles wisely. You conserve force. You act only when action matters. This calm unsettles others. They expect reaction. They look for emotional signals to exploit. When none appear, their leverage disappears. Detachment is quiet power. It also strengthens patience. You stop rushing outcomes, you stop forcing timing, you understand that effort compounds invisibly before results appear. Emotional attachment demands immediate reward. detachment allows long-term commitment. Under pressure, detached action becomes precise. There is no trembling urgency, no wasted movement. Breath is steady, mind is clear. This state cannot be faked. It is built through repeated refusal to obey impulse. Attachment also amplifies suffering. Pain becomes personal when resisted emotionally. When accepted neutrally, pain becomes information. You respond intelligently rather than emotionally. This reduces exhaustion. Energy is preserved for action. Detachment does not remove compassion or intensity. It refines them. Compassion becomes deliberate rather than reactive. Intensity becomes focused rather than scattered. You choose when to engage fully and when to withdraw. When insulted, the attached man explodes or collapses. When praised, he becomes dependent. The detached remain unchanged. They do not rise or fall with external noise. This stability allows leadership. Others trust what does not sway. Over time, emotion loses its ability to surprise you. You recognize patterns. You see anger rising before it peaks. You feel fear before it tightens. This awareness allows adjustment. Breath slows, posture changes, thought clears. Eventually, emotion becomes fuel rather than fire. It energizes action without controlling it. Passion serves discipline instead of destroying it. A man who acts without emotional attachment cannot be rushed, provoked, or coerced. He decides his own timing. He moves when it is correct, not when he is pushed. Calm action outlasts emotional force every time. Remove emotion from command, and clarity will always lead your hand. After emotion has been placed in its proper position, another illusion must be destroyed: the belief that action should wait for motivation. Motivation is unreliable. It appears and disappears without warning. A man who waits for it has already surrendered control. Discipline exists precisely for the moments when motivation is absent. This is where most fail, not because the task is impossible, but because the feeling to act is missing. Most men treat motivation as a signal. If they feel energized, they move. If they feel tired, uncertain, or bored, they stop. This trains the mind to obey mood. Mood is unstable. It shifts with sleep, weather, opinion, and comfort. When mood leads, consistency dies. Discipline is different. Discipline is an agreement made in clarity and honored regardless of feeling. It is not loud, it does not inspire, it commands quietly. When you obey it repeatedly, something important changes inside. Action stops being emotional, it becomes procedural. You do what must be done because it must be done. This removes internal conflict. The arguing voice weakens. You stop negotiating with yourself. Negotiation is a form of delay. Delay feeds weakness. When action becomes automatic, weakness has no time to speak. There will be days when the body feels heavy, the mind dull, the spirit quiet. These days are not exceptions, they are the test. Anyone can act when energy is high. Only the disciplined act when energy is low. This is where strength separates itself. Obeying discipline in these moments builds trust with yourself. Each time you act without motivation, you reinforce authority. The mind learns that your decisions are final. Over time, resistance lessens, not because tasks become easier, but because obedience becomes familiar. Motivation is emotional reward promised in advance. Discipline is respect earned afterward. The reward of discipline is not excitement, it is stability. Stability allows progress without drama. Many believe they need passion to succeed. Passion fades quickly. It burns hot and leaves emptiness behind. Discipline burns slow and steady. It does not exhaust, it sustains. When you rely on motivation, you require constant stimulation. You seek novelty. You abandon routines too quickly. Progress becomes inconsistent. When you rely on discipline, repetition becomes acceptable. Mastery lives in repetition. There is also freedom here. When motivation no longer dictates action, you are no longer a servant to feeling. You can work in silence. You can continue without applause. External validation loses importance. You act because you decided to act. This quiet consistency compounds. Small actions repeated daily outweigh rare bursts of intensity. Most overestimate what can be done in a day and underestimate what can be done in a year. Discipline corrects this distortion. Obeying routine also protects clarity. When actions are predetermined, decision fatigue disappears. You do not waste energy deciding whether to act, you preserve energy for execution. This efficiency becomes visible in all areas of life. Discipline also teaches patience with results. When motivation leads, impatience follows. You want immediate return. When discipline leads, you accept delay. You trust process. This trust prevents discouragement. There will be moments when discipline feels mechanical. This is not failure, this is maturation. Emotion is no longer required to move. You act cleanly without inner noise. This is strength refined. Some fear that living this way removes joy. They misunderstand joy. Joy that depends on mood is fragile. Joy that comes from self-respect is durable. When you know you acted correctly despite resistance, satisfaction is deep and quiet. Obedience to discipline also builds resilience. When unexpected hardship appears, you are not shocked. You are already practiced in acting without ideal conditions. Adaptation becomes natural. Others may not notice your effort. They may misunderstand your calm. Let them. Discipline is private. Its rewards appear later, undeniable and unannounced. A man who obeys discipline when motivation is absent becomes unstoppable not because he is always strong, but because he is never dependent on feeling. When action no longer waits for desire, progress becomes inevitable. Move when you do not want to, and nothing within you will ever command you again. When discipline becomes consistent and the mind no longer waits for permission to act, life itself must be redefined. Most men separate training from living. They believe strength is built in special moments and then carried into ordinary days. This belief keeps them unprepared. There is no separation. Every day is training whether you acknowledge it or not. The only question is what you are training for. If you treat life as comfort punctuated by occasional effort, weakness grows between challenges. If you treat life as continuous preparation, strength accumulates quietly. The world does not announce when it will test you. It arrives without warning. Those who train only when convenient are always late. To live as if life is continuous training does not mean constant tension. It means constant awareness. You move through ordinary moments with intention. How you walk, how you speak, how you listen, how you eat, how you rest. Each action either sharpens or dulls the mind. Nothing is neutral. Most men relax their standards when no one is watching. This is where character decays. Privacy reveals truth. If discipline disappears in solitude, it was never real. Continuous training means the same standard exists whether observed or alone. This mindset removes false peaks and valleys. There is no dramatic rise during motivation and collapse afterward. There is steady movement forward. Progress becomes quiet and reliable. You stop needing intensity to feel effective. Effectiveness becomes normal. When life is treated as training, inconvenience becomes useful. Delay tests patience. Disagreement tests restraint. Fatigue tests commitment. These moments are no longer interruptions. They are opportunities to refine response. You stop asking, "Why is this happening?" and begin asking, "How should I move?" This shift changes how pressure is experienced. Pressure becomes familiar. Familiarity removes panic. You are not shocked by difficulty because difficulty is expected. Expectation removes fear. Continuous training also simplifies decision-making. You no longer ask what feels good or what is easiest. You ask what strengthens discipline. This question cuts through confusion quickly. Clarity replaces debate. There is humility in this approach. You accept that weakness can return if neglected. Strength is not owned, it is maintained. This keeps arrogance from forming. You remain vigilant without becoming rigid. Treating life as training also removes resentment. When hardship appears, you do not feel singled out. Hardship is part of the path. Acceptance prevents bitterness. Bitterness drains energy needed for action. This mindset also sharpens observation of others. You see how easily people are controlled by comfort, emotion, and validation. You stop expecting consistency from those who do not train. This reduces frustration. Expectations align with reality. Rest becomes intentional rather than indulgent. You rest to recover, not to escape. Recovery strengthens training rather than undermining it. There is no guilt because rest serves purpose. Continuous training builds quiet authority. Others sense steadiness without understanding its source. You do not rush, you do not overreact, you do not chase approval. Presence becomes grounded. Over time, fear loses its edge, not because danger disappears but because preparedness increases. You trust your ability to respond. This trust creates calm under uncertainty. Life lived this way becomes simple, though not easy. Simplicity comes from alignment. You are no longer pulled in opposing directions by desire and discipline. One path remains. When challenge finally arrives in full force, there is no need to transform yourself. You are already prepared. You have been preparing all along. Live as if every moment is shaping you, because it is.